Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate you holding this hearing. Us getting rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse in our government is extremely important. Ms. Greszler, I think you mentioned $184 billion in fraud in just a year. I'm on the Appropriations Committee, and only 2 of our appropriations bills that fund the government are over that amount. So that's significant with what we could be doing or returning to the American people if we could rein in the waste, fraud, and abuse. I'm also constantly amazed by how much we try to measure compassion by how many dollars go out the door, how many people are on the rolls, without looking at to whether it's going to accomplish those needs. I appreciate, Mr. Walk, what you had pointed out, that some of these dollars are actually being used fraudulently by gangs to buy drugs and guns and nefarious activities, not to mention somebody going overseas to bad actors and all those different kind of things. It's important that we make sure that it's going to do exactly what it was supposed to do. I note that SNAP has almost doubled in the last 5 years. Meanwhile, the poverty rate in our country is roughly where it was about 5 years ago, within a percentage. And so it seems like maybe there's some overhead. Recently, just in the data shared, as the chairman had mentioned, $3 billion a year in potential waste, fraud, and abuse just among the states that have shared information. 186 deceased individuals who are on the rolls. Now, if we take those off the rolls and the numbers of SNAP beneficiaries went down, what you'd hear is, children are not being fed from the left, but actually we're just trying to make sure that we're not sending money to people who are not alive anymore. There are 356 to 500,000 duplicate enrollees. So some of these are people who are enrolled in multiple states. I think Ms. Greszler, you had talked about that. Some up to 6 states that we know of, and this is of the states sharing information. I would think that those states not sharing information, that potentially the problem's worse, and maybe that's not why they're sharing information. Who knows? Ms. Roy, you talked about the checkbox that, all you have to do is say, are you not receiving? Us hoping that those committing fraud would be honest on their application, right? This is the big check we have. Ms. Greszler, I was wondering if you could speak to, and maybe we'll go down the line, to you mentioned some of them, but some of the protections that we could put in place to make sure that the SNAP benefits are going to those who are truly in need, and that we're making sure that the federal taxpayers. I was really struck by your thought of what we require the information of those paying taxes into. So those who are basically footing the bill for SNAP, we require to know every dollar that they're making. But those who are receiving the benefits, it doesn't seem like we have that same sort of.
Yes, thank you. And I want to go over 2 things. And the first is looking at and addressing the benefits that the government delivers the same as the taxes it collects. And so what we need to do is establish some new 1099 reporting forms. If you receive a Social Security benefit, you file that with your taxes each year. We should be able to have every benefit that goes out the door, a beginning to an end accounting of that. And then you can have a situation where automatically this gets detected. The Department of Justice announced a $6.5 billion fraud takedown yesterday, 455 dependents, healthcare programs. Some of those were stolen identities, and then the individuals had benefits claimed on the stolen identities individual's behalf. Well, if you don't have that individual claiming on their form that they received that benefit, that's going to be an automatic trigger to look back to the next step, the next pathway in this, beginning to end accounting to say, were you the point of fraud, or was it that next one? But you should be able to follow that end to end. And the second is getting rid of these eligibility loopholes. If you look at the 7 states that actually use the federal standards instead of this categorical eligibility, they have 50% fewer people on SNAP, and they have the exact same poverty rate.
It seems to me that states are actually incentivized to just get more people on the rolls, whether it's valid or not.
Is money into the state, and they pay $0 of it.
Yeah, Ms. Royal, did you want to speak to that?
Having access to the National Accuracy Clearinghouse, which is a nationwide database that would provide information to states to prevent or identify dual enrollment, would be critical. The next thing, ID verification to make sure that a person applying for the benefits is not deceased, is who they say they are, and we can make sure, again, that the benefits are issued accurately. Ending self-attestation. Someone can go in and submit an application and answer a question with a shoulder shrug and still receive benefits. So verifying the information provided for eligibility would be significant. Increasing the retention amount. So when a state has determined that benefits have been issued to a household that they shouldn't have received, when the state recovers that, they're able to retain a portion of that money. And increasing that percentage to incentivize states to actually identify and prosecute or prevent and detect fraud would be substantial. And finally, requiring that retention money be used for the prevention, detection, and prosecution of fraud. Often, many states just roll that into their general fund, so investigators continue to be understaffed and undersourced.
Thank you. My time's up, Chair.